Welcome, dear friends, to Cardiac Radio at 11 p.m., nourishing our souls with the spirit of truth. It feels good to be here. It feels good to be together, forming this current at this time. You and I are together to discover the truth. The truth is like a diamond, it shines the light that it comes around it. And you know that you and I are children of God, true diamonds of God, shining the light of God. That's why we don't need to be ashamed. Some people say, oh, Vanessa, I don't want to show off. I don't want to show because now we need to let the light of God shine through us. We have no option. It's the only way. But when we allow this light to shine, we are expanding in love towards others. The first commandment is love God above all things, naturally. As we love God, we love everything He created, including ourselves. And thus we are able to expand that love towards the whole creation. Love our neighbor as ourselves. This is chapter 11 of the Gospel according to Spiritism, the one in which André Luiz got inspired to write a message through Waldo Vieira in this very moment that we are here. And we mean, in this very moment, we relate to you the English version because the Portuguese, the original, was written in 1960, published in 1961, 60 years ago. And finally, thanks to the grace of God and Cardiac Radio's team, we have the information to release to you. It's Voices of the Good News. Before we hear the voices of the gospel of the good news, let us read item 2 of chapter 11 in the Gospel according to Spiritism. Loving one's neighbor as oneself. Luke chapter 6, verse 31. Jesus said, treat all people as you would want them to treat you. And in Matthew 7:12, it's reported, do unto everyone everything you would want them to do to you, for such is the law and the prophets. So interesting, because Jesus was a positive master. He didn't say, don't do what you don't like, but that's what people say, right? But Jesus didn't say that, don't do. He said, do, being positive. He is a positive coach. Looking at the negative doesn't improve us in any way. Only when we focus on the good. So, what can I do to others that I would like to receive? Is it a phone call? Is it a smile? Is it fixing a meal for someone? Is it giving them sometimes some money that they may need? Or a hug? Of course, in safe conditions during the pandemic. Some people we can hug because they live under the same roof. What do you think? It's up to all of us. It's up to all of us to define how we can identify this in others. In our brains, we have a structure right here in our temporal areas. It's a cortical area that is highly activated when we feel the needs of others and we feel like attending to the needs of others, which we call altruism. It's something that we can learn and develop and expand. Maybe we don't feel very altruistic, but as we see people who do, as we are around these teachings that are constantly stimulating us, we'll be more attentive to observe people's needs and attend to their needs as we would like people to attend to our needs, right? Let's breathe in and out and listen. The voices of the good news Andre Luiz, the spirit doctor who wrote the book No Solar and other books through Chico Xavier, comes today in a different style. It's like an educational method. He makes a recommendation and then explains it according to the teachings of the gospel, the good news. It's as if we're listening to a choir of good news voice. Let us listen to it. Visualize yourself as if you're in front of a choir, the choir of the gospel, the good news, and they are telling us the information. All right? The first thing they say, highlight the good side of people, beings, and things. And now the other part of the choir says it's almost like a duet. Examine everything and retain the best. Jesus said that. Paul of Tarsus, inspired in Jesus, wrote in the scriptures, examine everything and retain the best. Right now, during the pandemic, it's tricky because there's a lot of misinformation. Some people write to us and they ask, Vanessa, what do you think about this news? If I see that somebody is saying something bad, it's easy because that person, when they are talking bad about vaccines, when they are talking bad about masks, when they're talking bad about needed lockdowns, these people are totally ignorant of the true scenario of the virus. How many more deaths do we need for people to understand that this is serious? If it hasn't come that close for them to take it seriously, then tragically, we need more. But why? So let us highlight the good. Let us share the beauty of science working day in, day out. For example, Pfizer today, as we were reading in the news, they are talking about using this new technique of mRNA that they are using for the coronavirus vaccine to potentiate other vaccines that have been in the market. It's progress. When we go to the law of destruction in the Spirit's book by Kardec, we learn very evidently that wars are a sign of our selfishness, but they may be needed just because sometimes in their selfishness we go into steps that will generate transformation through destruction. The pandemic is, yes, it's a bacterial war. It's it's a virus war. It's a war, a microscopic war. It's a war that is happening in our mental fields, generating this magnet for a virus that we create ourselves with our thoughts, feelings, words, and actions. So I don't doubt that there is something that dangerous out there because there are people who indulge in bad thoughts, bad feelings, bad words, bad actions. They are proud of themselves saying that they like to be bullies. It's sad, so sad, because they haven't discovered the best in them, that they are children of God, that they are better than that. What do? We look around and select. Are you good at choosing, examining everything, and retaining the best? We need to talk about techniques. How do we do it? It's emotional composure, spiritual awareness. Some people say that. No, no, no. You can say it. And I know that I will be able to process it with mastery because I'm not alone. I have a guardian angel who is helping me, and I'll be able to retain the best. If somebody comes and says something that they're not feeling well, we're not going to keep the troubles of the person. Then we're not helping the person. we're going to focus on the potential that that person has not discovered yet. Okay? That they have not discovered yet. It's up to us. It's up to you. It's up to me. It's up to all of us. To all of us to step towards that pathway. First, to retain the best, we're going to go through decision making process, which is a high cortical function. Why do people feel so reactive to things? Because they are still in the animal instincts. And they're like, oh no, thank you. I'm too anxious. Don't tell me these things. But when the higher human functions come in place, I'm able to listen and to understand that that is somebody else's emotions, somebody else's spiritual choices. But mine will be to visualize that this person is a child of God, that this person is a person who is coming to my life so I can at least pray and visualize the good in their life. See? No reactivity, and actually proactive with my reasoning and my trust in the only power that exists in the world, love. God's love is the sustainer of life. When we see around us, Mentor Joseph is saying right now, when we see somebody or something, like an animal, a plant, a person, sustained by God, it's God living in that person. So instead of being afraid of somebody, instead of feeling an aversion for somebody, let us feel loving care because God is really caring for that person like He's caring for us. All right, this is the first notes of the voices of the gospel. The second one, you want to know how many of them? I'll tell you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Andrea Luiz is always to the point. He's very American. Boom, 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 bullet points. But today is in a musical tone. Voices of the good news. Highlight the good side of everything and everyone. Do not value mistakes. Overcome evil with the good. Remember when here in the spirit of the truth, we've heard that Andre Louis saying, do not believe in the supremacy of evil. But do you believe in the supremacy of evil? When we hear about a shooting, we're shocked. We're thinking, oh my gosh, what's happening to people? But friends, it's not hard to understand what's happening. How can we live a good life in good actions, balanced ones, when there's no God? Where's God in our lives? Where is God in our lives? If God is not in our lives, how am I going to make wise decisions? Not that God is not, but in my conscious life, God is not. So then I make connections that are not divine. The outcome is terrible. So I look at the news and I hear about a shooting. We pray for the person who made that decision. How sad. How sad. It's springtime in the United States, and we have in a week heard about 2 shootings. So interesting. Sad, but it's interesting to note that there is in the literature, in the scientific literature, papers that talk about how people may become more depleted in some of their neurochemistry because it's the end of winter and now we're coming back to more exposure to light. But there are allergens that change, seasonal allergies that change our neurochemistry and change our mood as well. So we'll see an increase in suicide rates sometimes and even homicides that are science. It's a whole project that scientists are working trying to understand why this happens at the beginning of spring. So people are in a mood that is not the best, getting out of winter, but more active going to the streets in that mood. Plus the seasonal allergy that is coming to place, changing our neurochemistry. But the question for you and I is, what have we been cultivating? So instead of being shocked by that shooting, let us spread the good news as best we can and send more prayers and more love to people. Hug, be patient, be loving and caring to people in our lives, beginning anew always, even when we make a mistake. Because sometimes we focus in our own mistake. Andrea Lewis then says, overcome evil with the good. If you look at yourself in the mirror and you realize that you dislike some features, remember that imperfection, that shortcoming, however we name it, is temporary because we progress. We are here to move forward. So let us overcome it with the good. Some people say, how can I stop this addiction? By changing to good habits. You don't stop a bad habit by focusing on the bad habit. I'm not going to eat chocolate, and you keep looking at the chocolate. I'm not going to eat chocolate. I'm not going to eat this cake. I'm not going to eat this. I'm not going to drink coffee. And then I look at the coffee and I think of coffee and I think, oh my gosh, I'm not going to drink it. Overcome evil with the good. I don't look at it, I look at healthy things. Start watching videos of people who take good care of themselves. Facebook, Instagram, etc. You'll be inspired. The good that is out there, the possibilities, and overcoming addictions. Drink more water and observe how good, but bless your water before you drink it. Let's bless the water before we drink it. It's gonna be different. Some people say, I don't like water because it tastes like nothing. And I say, well, the most precious liquid that we have is not truly appreciated because we're so addicted to tastes that are overpowering. It's time to go back to simplicity, the simplicity of water, and see the blessings of it. So I take a glass, hold in my hands, and before I drink it, I say, I feel your blessings, dear Lord, and I absorb them with all my gratitude. And then I drink it. And then I drink it. It's going to taste different, very differently. Let me know. Send an email to us if you find out that it tasted, because it will. You'll feel differently. You feel that you are absorbing gratefully the blessings of God. The other voice of the gospel comes after Andre Lewis recommends to us assist others without demands. Forgive 70 times 7. Because sometimes we don't forgive people's ingratitude or their roughness, right? So interesting. Nowadays, you open the door to people, not so much because of the pandemic, so we have to distance ourselves. But then people don't say, you say thank you. They say, uh-huh, mm-hmm. I'm like, where politeness where did it go? Thank you. You're welcome. Oh, Vanessa, come on. Life is so short. Why do I have little things that make a difference? Be mindful. Thank you. You're welcome. Can you pass this, please? Thank you. You're welcome. We need to cherish this at home, like we do for people when they are guests in our home. The gentleness, the kindness. When we lose it at home, we won't be able to express it in the street consistently. We may fake it for a while, but not for long. So we need to forgive because people, they're not aware. Do you remember a time when you were living this life totally unaware of these things? I remember that when I was much younger, rushing and thinking that I need to do this, that, and the other, and not even paying attention to people's faces. When I was very young, I remember that. Thinking about my needs instead of paying attention to people's needs. Today I look back and I really wish I could give all of them a hug and say, I'm sorry that I didn't notice you, that I didn't express my gratitude, that I didn't pay attention to your needs. I'm sorry. Because this forgiveness is about ourselves as well. And that's why Andre Luis deepened that understanding about spiritual ethics. Today is a lesson on spiritual ethics. He says, run away from rudeness, from impertinence. Do not complain against each other because you don't want to be condemned. In the gospel, we hear that. When we judge somebody, we'll be judged. But when do we judge? When we're not feeling secure. When we need to feel proud of ourselves because we know better. And then I start making comments about people's nonsense. You see how fragile we still are, vulnerable. Because we feel good when we point somebody else's mistake. Mamma mia, Mentor Joseph says, Vanessa, that's not a good feeling when we feel good by pointing out people's shortcomings. Because then when you see your shortcomings, you're going to feel defeated. And then you're going to open doors for spirits who will judge you too. So we need to be careful. Run away from rudeness, from impertinence, intolerance. And he goes deeper. Don't be annoyed. Do all things without creating a strife, murmuring, or strife. Some people are like, oh, I can't believe I have to watch this. And children are funny because they're getting in the mood of doing their chores. They're like, oh, really? I wanted to play. I didn't want to do my bed. I didn't. But this is life. We need to practice this to do things that we don't really want to do without complaining. Imagine the day we get there, huh? I know some people who are in their 90s who are just like that. So patient. They never get annoyed. They listen to people. If you ask us, is there a limit, Vanessa, to how much we should expose ourselves to something before we get annoyed? We would say yes, it's wise to protect yourself, but increase your threshold of tolerance. We need to become more tolerant. So instead of always escaping away from scenarios we're not annoyed, he's asking us, do things without complaining, without creating a battlefield. Oh, really? I came home and I'm tired. And oh, I didn't expect coming home to do this. And then we complain. And we're so used to that. We teach our children, we teach our grandchildren. So let us practice this inner control, self control. It's self discipline. Think of Chico Xavier. Do you think he indulged in complaining about things he didn't want to do? Never. He never complained about anybody. I've never heard of anybody saying it. He really walked the talk. So he was patient to understand. He learned a lot, we agree, and Emmanuel taught him much. But we have guardian angels as well who are willing to teach us. So, a good technique to avoid annoyance is to be tolerant. To be tolerant is also to understand people. And to understand people, we need to see them, value them, and be with them. If it's too much, we retreat in prayer. Sometimes we are in a business meeting and we cannot retreat physically, even on the internet. People are talking stuff, we're annoyed, but then we send them a prayer. So they are strengthened in their divine nature. Okay, so we went through half of it, half of the voices of the good news. Highlight the good of everything. Do not value mistakes. Help without conditions. Don't be rude. Be tolerant. Don't be annoyed. And do not impose yourself. Because in the gospel, the voice says, the Lord's disciples know each other because they love each other very much. When Andre Luis is saying do not impose yourself, what does he mean? What does he mean? Do not impose. He's saying you may know something that people may not know. You may like something that people may not like. But do not say, oh, come on, try this. Come on, read this book. Come on, it's so good. It's so good. And then being like imposing ourselves. It's so good when we see somebody practicing the Joseph way of being. And now I'm talking about not mentor Joseph, but Joseph, Jesus' father. He was a master in silence, says Emmanuel in one of his messages. Master in silence. Joseph, father of Jesus, he practiced silence. He was instrumental in the coming of the Christ. But he never imposed himself. And think, he lived in a Hebrew society in which the fathers were crucial. So he didn't impose himself. How can we be in a place and not impose ourselves? Because sometimes we don't know how to be around people without speaking. And that's a good practice, not to impose, to simply be around and admire people, listen to them, and be there. Just be without the need of saying something, commenting on some all the time, all the time. Number 7, do not pressure anyone. You see, he goes deeper. Do not pressure anyone. Pay close attention to the law of freedom. Fascinating. People are free. They want to be whoever they want to be. Law of justice as well. Respecting people's rights of being. They are who they are. But Vanessa, what they are doing is messing up. Well, look at Jesus. His life was at stake. He could have called Judas and talked to Judas one on one, like, Judas, come on, what are you thinking? I've planned this for millennia. Are you serious? No. And his life was at stake. But how often we pressure one another? All the time. Because we want people to do what we think is right. So the law of freedom is a law that you and I need to observe, not only for ourselves. You see, we all love freedom, the freedom of being. We need to respect people's ways of being, knowing, that we are all progressing. We're not going to be like this, that, and the other forever. So if people don't like something that we do, tolerance and respect. See, it's spiritual ethics and spiritual etiquette from A to Z. Number 8, forget someone else's fault. Put your hand at the plow without looking back. That's the voice of the gospel. It's almost like music saying, forget, forgive, forgive and forget and forgive and forget. Put your hand at the plow without looking back. But what do we do? We create lots of accidents in our daily lives because instead of looking at the rear mirror, which is just a tiny bit as a reference, we look back like this and we create problems because we're not facing forward. When we see people, time goes by and they are stuck on something that happened in the past. This is exactly what they're doing. The road is here as you and I are talking, and they're looking back. Is this going to work? No. I'm going to bump. I'm going to crash, create accident, create problems. Vanessa, how do I forget something? Good question. In neuroscience, a few years ago, scientists researching on veterans of war who developed PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorders, they observed to their own surprise that when people create good memories, they focus on good actions, good writings, they are able to displace traumatic memories, forgetting them. Do you think God didn't create a mechanism for us to erase, press the delete button, like in the keyboard of a computer? Click, 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 click. Forget by erasing, writing a new thing. That's how we forget. We forget by creating new memories, making good choices, doing the good. If we want to forget someone else's fault, press on and do the good. The more good we do, the more we forget about that. We're so empowered. Plus, it's our vibratory power that is increasing as well. Number 9, resign in silence, surrender in silence. And the voice of the gospel says, the Christian exists to serve and not to be served. He goes deeper, deeper, and deeper. Many of us here are willing to be served. I want somebody to hold me tight and tell me how great I am. And I want to do things so people know how great I am. So then I hide my guilt. That's why I look forward to people's approval, because I'm not approving of myself. Why? Because of the countless misdeeds for several lives, including this. So then I am constantly looking for approval. But that approval comes from within. So it's not going to be in being a needy person and finding somebody to really say, oh, how wonderful you are, Vanessa, that I'm going to be a true Christ conscious person, but to serve. Surrender in silence. Do the things. We don't need a trumpet to say, dun, da, da, da. Today I washed the dishes. Yay, you're a wonderful person, Vanessa. Dun, da, da, da. I washed the car. Yay, how wonderful you are. Dun, da, da, da. I fixed dinner. Dun, da, 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 Vanessa. No, I go there, love, and I fix a meal, put some love, and Just distribute without saying, you see what I did, how I did it, da da dee, da da da. Because we want to tell people how hard it was so they really value it. Because at the end of the day, we don't want to serve them. We want them. It's like a bait. We give them a bait so they give us back appreciation. This is pride and selfishness. I'm using people. I'm not loving because I don't love myself either. I need to look for approval from the outside in. It doesn't work. And finally, as we talk about spiritual etiquette, spiritual ethics, Andrea Luiz finalizes this choir of the voices of the gospel by saying, use tireless kindness. All your actions shall be done with charity. All of our actions with kindness. The Dalai Lama says that his religion is kindness, and he is. He seems to be so kind. I don't know. It feels like that. Be kind, always. Chico Xavier never turned anything or anybody down, not even an ant. When the ants were in the bedroom, Waldo Vieira sharing the bedroom, they had a desk, and ants were coming in. Waldo Vieira stood up and said, I'm gonna finish with these ants. So he was going to the market to buy something to kill the ants. Quickly, truly kindly, as always, Chico Xavier whispered to the ants, my dear ants, please run away because my friend is coming back and he's not gonna be merciful. It's funny, but it's true. And did you know they ran away? We don't know who Chico Xavier was. More than we imagined because he was always disguising himself so we wouldn't see the light through humility, just like Jesus. Jesus is our model. He didn't in any way shine his light to make us feel little. On the contrary, he was shining his light to empower us, as the sun continues to do every day. Let us shine our light in the next 24 hours. Let us feel like we are hearing the voices of the good news, the voices of the gospel, and feel this tireless kindness. It's very likely that this last statement by Emmanuel, the recommendation, use tireless kindness, sums it all. Let us be tirelessly kind in the next 24 hours without baits, kind without telling people that we're kind, being kind in silence, without trumpeting that we're being kind. All right? Is that a good thing? We feel good. We're the team of the last hour of the day, and we're prepared for the next 24 hours in kindness. Let us sing the song of kindness and fly higher with our vibrations. Thank you, friends, for this moment of deep therapy for our souls. Until tomorrow, God willing, here at Kardec Radio.